I'll start with just a few names that really are standing out to me and a few guys that I think are going to kind of really make that jump this coming year. And yeah, I'm going to start off with maybe it's a little bit of the personal bias because it is St. Mary's, but I'm going with Jordan Ross here. And Jordan Ross, we saw toward the end of last year, really kind of step in and be really one of the leaders on that squad and running the offense when either Aiden Mahaney or Augustus Marshallonis were unable to do so. We saw this in the NCAA tournament game against Grand Canyon, where he was actually one of the bright spots. Maybe for me, definitely the brightest of spots in that game, because you saw just the different dynamic that he was able to bring, and his playmaking ability, his ability to get to the basket and create shots for not only himself but for others. And we're starting to see, and I've seen like some video, whatnot, of him training in the off season. Of course, you always have to take that with a grain of salt, but this is a guy who was really highly touted coming in. You knew was going to take a little bit of time to kind of grow. And with the departure of Aiden Mahaney, it opens the door for Jordan Ross, especially in a system with a team that historically has actually run 2 point guards out there at the same time. In fact, that's probably what Randy Bennett would prefer. You look at a lot of the teams. You look at the Todd Golden, Patty Mills's teams, or the Mickey McConnell, Matthew Dellavedova, Joe Rahan, Emmett Naar. There's plenty of, you got Tommy Kuzi, Jordan Ford. There's plenty of examples of this team running really like 2 point guard sets. And now, likely, I think, we're going to see the Marshallonis Ross set in the backcourt, at least to start the season. And that he's one I'm really kind of keying in on as being one of those breakout players going into next year. Another name that really kind of sticks out to me is the Washington transfer to Washington State, Nate Calmes. This was a guy who was the Southern Conference Freshman of the Year a couple of seasons ago. Transferred to Washington last year. Really didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but we did see flashes. He had 15 points against Arizona in Pac-12 play. This is a guy who's going to be in a team that's really had a lot of turnover. Only 4% of last year's minutes come back to Washington State. And yes, there are a few Eastern Washington guys coming over with David Riley. And so there's some familiarity there, and there might be early on some heavy, maybe a little bit more leaning on the guys he's familiar with and knows his system. But the addition of Nate Calmes really, to me, is going to be the one to watch because this is going to be his real first opportunity to kind of be in the lineup on a regular basis, to have the opportunity to possibly lead a team here with Washington State, this new look Washington State team. So looking at Nate Calmes, I think that's the guy I would kind of key in on as far as someone who's going to be able to take that next leap, be able to show off what he's able to do and lead that Cougar squad going into next year. And another one that I think has been kind of growing and growing as we saw throughout the course of the season last year, but then also just the opportunities he's getting in the off season. Jake Ensminger, he does all the little things right. He kind of reminds me to an extent of, like, you think about like guys who do all the little things but also have high potential. Again, not comparing them as players, but it's a little Anton Watson-esque to an extent of he does all the little things right. He makes winning plays. Like he's going to be in the right spot at the right time. And we've seen some of the potential that he has over the course of this past year. He went back over to Europe to participate in summer leagues over there. So he's going to get additional experience before he does return to the States and to Santa Clara, because then this Santa Clara team, yes, does have a lot of talent returning. Dove has, I believe it's the second most minutes of any WCC team coming back. But he's a key part of that. And he's going to play, I think, a bigger role going into next year with some of the other pieces that, yes, like you still have to kind of fill in some gaps here and there. You still have some guys who have solidified spots. but he's going to force his way into the lineup, I think, more often than not this coming year. So Jake Ensminger is a guy you really have to watch out, who I think could be a breakout star going into next year. And just another name that kind of sticks out to me, just like based off of numbers again, like as we're starting to learn about Washington State, Oregon State, and what those programs are going to look like as they translate to the WCC, I do think that there's going to be a learning curve here. And so one of the names that stuck out to me just based off like his numbers in sophomore year and hope, and in a way it's like thinking of what he might look like in next year is Michael Rataj. 8 points per game, nearly 6 rebounds, coming into his junior year this coming season. This is a guy who's going to, again, have a larger load kind of placed on him because of the number of departures that Oregon State had. And also the fact that you're coming into you add a lot of guys, you're going to kind of lean on the guys and the guys who kind of are a little bit more familiar with the system, at least early on. And he's going to be one of those guys early on who's going to get that opportunity. You've seen those numbers are there. He has the right size. Again, like this WCC has a lot of big guys and legitimate skilled big guys up and down the conference. So this is a key part in what Oregon State is going to be able to have to kind of bring, because we know Santa Clara is like one of the biggest teams in the country. Gonzaga always has a lot of size. St. Mary's has a lot of size. USF will bring some size. LMU has brought in more size as well. So you have a lot of teams that are really trying to like get bigger and make, really because you're trying to like match up with St. Mary's and Gonzaga, because that's who you have to get through. Guy like Michael Rataj is going to fit right in with that sort of thinking. So I'm looking at him as another guy to really kind of be one of those breakout stars for this coming year. And I'm not going to go into too much detail. There were a few other guys that kind of like popped up in my mind of, oh yeah, these could be other guys. Jan Vide at LMU was another one that kind of popped up to me. Again, UCLA transfer coming over across the city to go play for the Lions. That's a big move. I think there's going to be definitely some eyes on that team, and then on Vide specifically. Carlton Lingard Jr. for USF. This is really the Jonathan Mobo replacement. Really, now as we look at it today, it is. And there was a lot of like eyes and paying attention to his movement in the offseason. A lot of good things said about what he was able to bring to the table at UTSA and what he's going to be able to bring as he moves over to USF and playing, again, that Jonathan Mobo role, probably in that 4-5 spot going into next year. And then the other one I think is going to be interesting to watch. I mean, the whole team is going to be interesting to watch, but over at Pacific, I'm looking at Jazz Gardner, because this was a former 4-star recruit that went to Nevada, really didn't play all that much while he was there, has moved back to California in the WCC, and this Pacific program needs a lot. And there's going to be ample opportunity to show what he's capable of doing, because this is a blank slate for a team that has, for external, I would say, has low expectations. And anything that this program can do, anything that the players on this team can do to move this program forward is going to be a big lift. And I believe that Jazz Gardner is going to be a big part of that as we get closer and closer to the season.